What is up, y'all? We are here for our Saturday night secret sermon. This is our Secret Teachings of Jesus series where we are studying from the Gnostic Gospels. We're currently in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, studying from the Gospel of Philip. If you like this video, then while you're liking it, you should subscribe to my channel and go there and find the Secret Teachings of Jesus playlist. There are scores of videos from the Gospel of Philip, and before that, we did the Secret Book of James. So the Gospel of Philip is these individual, short, cryptic portions of text that are sort of like esoteric and mysterious, and they're to be meditated on. They are like a collection of writings that didn't have a lot of context when they found them, and so it appears to be like maybe the musings of a writer, their notes that they were taking, but they weren't fully fleshed out, and so it's unclear if they were meant to be meditations, which they are, or if there were, ideas that were kept like in a journal, like when you have ideas, right? And you're like, oh, I'm going to write that down and I might write a blog about it or something. And, you just get the idea out, but it doesn't go into like a full-fleshed thing. So I think it's very interesting because I feel like each portion is complete, but a lot of them sort of reference other ideas throughout the Gospels and different terminology and symbolism that is used, and they all feel very complete, but they all kind of reference one another throughout this book. So we've been working on the Gospel of Philip for a while. There's just so many portions, but we're gonna finish Gospel of Philip this year. So up next, maybe I will probably do the Gospel of Mary, and there's a lot of other really cool things that I'm excited to get into next. But this has given us so much to work with. They're so deep and so meaningful, and I think that just having a handle on a lot of the ideas that are referenced in the Gospel of Philip gives you a greater understanding of what Jesus is talking about a lot of times in the New Testament. And also some of the encoded ideas, the symbolic ideas that are peppered throughout the Old Testament, the Torah and the prophets and the Proverbs and the Psalms and all of those things. The Bible isn't so much a history book, and it's not to be read literally like an instruction manual. It's not just about morals and ethics. There's so many deeper layers going on, and there's like a spiritual technology and like a spiritual wisdom underneath what can appear to be very harsh and difficult teachings at times. And so that's what I've loved about the Gospel of Philip, is that we get into deep symbolism and explore that in this gospel. So tonight's portion is called Creation Through a Mistake. And it feels a little controversial because the implication is that creation was a mistake, and you're like, God make a mistake, But we'll get into the mythology of the Garden of Eden. And when we use the word mythology, we're not saying that it's invalid or that these are like fairy tales or whatever, but we're using it the way that Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell understand mythology, is that myth is not fiction. Myth is a way that the cosmos or the way that we tell a truth that is a cosmic truth that resonates in such a grand way that you almost can't speak about it directly, that it's It's like the story gets told in parables and in allegories and in poems, and the story is told in nature, and it is told through human experience and through it's like a story it's a universal truth that's so true that it just resounds and echoes in everywhere you kind of look. And so it's always like nature's always speaking these truths, these higher truths, through through the plants and through the sky and through our seasons and through the sun and all kinds of things. And so it's really just really interesting. So tonight, our portion, so we will begin. A lot of times, a lot of things in the Gospel of Philip have us going back to talk about the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. And most of the teachings of the Bible in some way or another reference that us as souls, there was one original soul of all mankind, and everyone split off from there, Adam, right? And so that is how we're all connected as one great soul in the origin of souls, and we all have splintered off from there. So when Adam and Eve fell from the garden and committed that original sin, or when they missed the mark, or when they were separated from being in full union with God, it's like we as souls we inherited that because we were that original soul when that happened. And so we're always sort of correcting that fall with the ascendance and transcendence of our soul, going back up from the fall of our consciousness. Okay, so I will read this portion to you out loud a couple of times. We'll read it through, and then we'll go back and unpack it line for line. Okay, let's begin. Creation through a mistake. The world came into being through a mistake. The Creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed and did not get what he hoped for. For the world is not incorruptible, and the Creator of the world is not incorruptible. Things are not incorruptible, but offspring are. Nothing can receive incorruptibility unless it is an offspring. And whatever cannot receive certainly cannot give. So immediately the ego is like, I don't know about this passage. Like this is offensive. This confuses me. I don't understand that. God doesn't make mistakes. And so, in the mythology and the depths of Hebrew mythology around the creation of the world, there's not a lot of it in Genesis. A lot of this is coming from the oral tradition, and there's so much more going on in those first 1 or 2 chapters of Genesis than you learn about typically in the Christian church. And so some of this is in the preface of the Zohar. And so in the beginning, before there was existence, the first thing that was created alongside of God were the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And so they are the building blocks of reality. And it's like they had their own consciousness and personality. And then there were angels. And so in the beginning, the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph-Bet, tried to warn the Creator against creating human beings, right? God had created the world in a paradise of all the beautiful. They were like, look, stop while you're ahead, right? You've got all these beautiful trees and plants and flowers and mountains and waterfalls and animals, and everything is, working in harmony. But if you create these people and you give them free will, they will mess up and they will disappoint you, and you will be so angry. You will destroy them. You will bring your wrath down upon them. And God said, am I not long suffering? Like, I'll be patient. I can deal with this. And so, sure enough, we didn't do what we were supposed to do. We failed immediately. And then, God has had to be long suffering with humankind ever since. Every once in a while, in the early parts of the Bible, wiping out creation, starting over with the flood, and then, pinpointing Sodom and Gomorrah for their corruption, destroying that city to ash completely. Rather than destroying the whole world. God promised he wouldn't destroy the entire earth by a flood. Parentheses. Again, he gave us that covenant. So that's very, very interesting there. Okay, so let's read the passage again. The world came into being through a mistake. The Creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed. And he did not get what he hoped for. For the world is not incorruptible, and the Creator of the world is not incorruptible. Things are not incorruptible, but offspring are. Nothing can receive incorruptibility unless it is an offspring. And whatever cannot receive certainly cannot give. And there were angels that said, they cursed human beings. They were like, these people, they kept telling God, like, you're making a mistake. Like they're going to be your worst regret. And God warned the angels, like, stop talking bad about the human beings because they're actually going to have authority over you. Like I consider them to be in a higher being than you are, because the angels didn't have the same kind of free will. They were sort of built to be this one thing. Whereas the human beings, we have to come up against the challenge of having choice and being able to choose over our lower nature, over our carnal nature. So we have that difficulty, that challenge that keeps us, it keeps us in darkness, and it keeps us from revealing our full potential. But if we were able to use our free will to completely subdue that carnal nature and elevate that and transcend that carnal nature completely in our divinity, we would be more powerful than the angels. They are our servants. So those angels that continued to persist and speak ill of human beings were cast over to the other side, and they were assigned to be basically the antagonists of existence, pushing us and being our opponent, our enemy, and basically giving us something to rise against and rise above. And because we are pushed by that pressure, it causes us to reveal the darkness that was left in the universe, and we transcend that by transmuting it. And so, like, when the opponent, like, all of us have the devil in our face every second, right? And every time we up level, that means that the opponent is going to up level with us and be just that much more. Every time we get stronger and smarter, so does our opponent. But the opponent only ever meets us at exactly the level that we are at. And so when we get stronger and wiser, so does the opponent, but not more. We are always able to resist the opponent if we choose, and if we put our strength and our consciousness and our will into that. So that opponent, though, even though that Satan is evil and wicked, and all the darkness in the world it comes from Satan and demonic forces, they play a role in providing that pressure that causes us to rise above our weakness, rise above our darkness. And it exposes our weakness, right? When we're triggered, when we're brought to wrath and to anger, to jealousy, to covetousness. We wouldn't see that about ourselves if we were always just, everything was always working out. We're always in a good mood. We're never challenged, but we wouldn't be able to get that what was lying just below the surface, we wouldn't be able to see it. And so we would not be able to correct that darkness that was left over from the creation of the universe and the fall of Adam and Eve. It talks about sparks of light, right? The Creator breathes life into us, and the Creator is light, and each of us have sparks of light, and every living life form and all the animate creations of the universe are filled with those sparks of light, right? From the mineral kingdom to the plant kingdom to the animal kingdom to the speaking kingdom, which are the humans. And so when Adam and Eve fell, they lost a certain number of sparks of light over to the other side, and we have been trying to retrieve those sparks of light back ever since. And so that's why it's like we're all always working together as a collective soul to win back those sparks of light from the other side that we lost in the original fall. There were also sparks of light and darkness and refuse left over when in the earliest stages of creation, when there were the separation of the waters of the firmament and the waters below. There's this like leftover refuse that didn't get burned up, and like the fire and the ice and all of these things that were going on, which to me, in my mind, I relate that to the dark matter left over in the universe that science can't explain from the Big Bang. This is the scientific example of this, but this is also true on a metaphysical level. So each of us as souls, when we are born into the world, we're given this little bag of shit that is that darkness. And we can't destroy it because matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It has to be transmuted. It has to be shifted and transformed. And so if we took something completely out of the universe, like out of existence, if it was, say, obliterated suddenly and it was no more, then there would be a vacuum, right? Because all of this is stabilized because everything that is here now belongs here. So we don't accept the darkness and the evil, and we don't condone it or allow for it, but it is our duty and our responsibility to correct it, to repair it, to transform it, and to change it into light. So that's basically our assignment as souls. And so each of us have like this bit of darkness that we bring here. It's like our rent to come into physical manifestation, into the universe. And that's the whole reason we're here. It's not because we have a calling to use our talents to share with the world. That's part of something that we have while we're here. And it plays into our tikkun as we learn. So in Hebrew Kabbalah, we learn that each of our souls, we carry the same soul with us life after life after life. And throughout each life, we are trying to do our soul correction, which is our tikkun. And tikkun is that little bag of negativity and darkness that we have that is basically like the shells of negativity that build up over time through our negative actions, through our reactive thinking, through our negative consciousness, that serve as that thick veil that separates us from the Creator, from remembering fully our true wholeness and our true connection and our true divine state of consciousness. And so as we break through those layers of negativity called klipot, which I think it's interesting because if you garden and you have terracotta clay pots, when you have them for a while and they go through different seasons and they go through different weather, they start to like break off in shells and layers. It chips away. And I always think of it as, clay pot. My clay pot are breaking away. And when you break those shells of negativity, like when you overcome your reactive nature and you are able to transcend those parts of yourself, it breaks those shells, revealing more light from within you. It's like we're not trying to receive more light. We have the infinite light of the Creator within us. But what we're trying to do is undo the negativity to basically clean the window so you can see the light through it better. So we're already whole and we're already perfect. We don't have to add on anything. We just need to reveal what's already there. Just like, do you know what that sounds like? The David. Michelangelo Yes, Michelangelo carved the David. Yes. He said, I didn't, like when people were like, how did you imagine the perfection of the David? Like, how were you able to carve that masterpiece? And he said, it wasn't something that he created, he revealed the David. The David was already in the marble. He just chipped away everything that wasn't David. And so same as us, right? We are already this perfected masterpiece within this rough, raw block of marble. But our lifetimes and our experiences and our desire to become more like the Creator chip away what's not the real authentic us, and we reveal the true masterpiece over time, what's really inside. So let's read the passage again. The world came into being through a mistake. The Creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed and did not get what he hoped for. For the world is not incorruptible, and the Creator of the world is not incorruptible. Things are not incorruptible, but offspring are. Nothing can receive incorruptibility unless it is an offspring. And whatever cannot receive certainly cannot give. So let's go more into this using our friend chart. So we have here the tree of life. In the Garden of Eden, we were in the tree of life consciousness, the consciousness of total perfection, total union with God. And when Adam and Eve, and that was immortality, it was perfection, it was bliss, it was nirvana, and there was no death, no suffering, no sickness, no illness, no mistakes. It was pure. And we were all one with God. When Adam and Eve ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that introduced a second type of consciousness into the world. And it was a corrupted consciousness of separation, of duality, of death and suffering. And that's when death was introduced into the world. And that's when we became physicalized. So in the beginning, well, not in the beginning, but before Adam and Eve ate the fruit, we were in this dimension here. So just to give you a little rundown of what this is, if you haven't watched this, the series before, we use this map a lot. So this is the tree of life, and the tree of life consists of 10 Sphirot, and it looks like you're like, no, there's 11. It's because this here, Das, or Dot, is an unmanifest state of being. It's like the chasm between the supernal realm, which is the pure creation components of the universe, compared to the primary colors, right? When all colors are broken down, there's really just 3 colors. It's red, yellow, and blue. Those are the primary colors. And all the other colors are secondary colors, tertiary colors, and colors that are combined from those colors, right? So the same too is this. These are the supernal. This is the most abstract wholeness, oneness of the white light of the Creator. This is when all things were one, and the Creator was just this pure light emanating through a primordial point. And then the other 2 of the like root components of the universe are the divine supernal feminine, Binah, and the divine supernal masculine, Hakma. So this is Ima and Abba, which are the supernal mother and father of the universe. And so so it's basically like, think of electricity. You have a positive charge, which is the masculine column, the right side column of mercy. And this is a column that represents a state of consciousness. And then you have the left-hand column, which is the negative charge, which represents the feminine column. And that is the side of judgment. So right column, masculine column, mercy. Left column, feminine column, negative energy, positive energy, column of judgment. And this is our more carnal, this is the more carnal consciousness that usually results in from our logical mind, from our human mind, from our lower nature, from our animalistic nature. It results in judgment, chaos. It usually requires discipline and restriction. And the right-hand column is a column of mercy and sharing and harmony and goodness. Also giving and receiving, right? The masculine is a, think of the phallus as a protruding, giving organ, whereas the yoni is a receiving, passive organ, right? So the central column is when these two columns ideally come together in balance. And this is the most stable column, and this is the direct path of the elevation of consciousness. So each of these 10 Sfirot are representative of the different aspects of God. If you think about God as white light shown through a prism, you would get a rainbow, which separate the different hues, like the different wavelengths that are present within the white light. So too, these show the different personality makeup of the Godhead, the different qualities, the different virtues that make up our human soul, our human consciousness, and the consciousness of God. This is also the governing forces of the universe and the aspects that make up creation in these various stages of development and these dimensions of reality. So it's like layer by layer by layer. This whole thing is just one big long chain of association and chain of association. There's so many layers and associations and meanings. Each of these Sfirot have stages of psychological development associated with them. Stages of how almost like the places in our brain and the way like different sections of our consciousness and how that is made manifest. Each of them have virtue and vices associated with them. Each of them have angels and elements and planetary associations through the astrological influence of all of these. So there's depth and layer and meaning to all of them. The paths between them are the human experience that awakens these spheres of consciousness, and the challenges we meet along the way that do that for us, that provide us the opportunity to open those parts of ourselves. Okay, so what else? So the path of the light, as the universe is created, this is representative of all of reality, including the upper realms, the spiritual world. Everything from here up is the non-physical. This is referred to as the 99%. This is 99% of reality is a non-physical spiritual realm that we cannot see. Now, this is the 1%. Down here, this lower Sfirot, this is Malchut. This is physicalized reality. This is the multiverse that we're in. Not just our universe, not just our galaxy, not just our Earth, the multiverse, physical existence. Notice how it seems to be lower than the other groups, right? So notice that is lower, and then we'll circle back to that later. So we have the flow. Okay, and before I get into the flow of the light, we have these 3 negative veils of negative existence up here. So this is like non-existence, and then it gets even more non-existent, and then it's like absolute, abstract, that we can't even perceive. So the first veil of negative existence is called the endless light. And so before there was existence, before in the beginning, there was the endless. And the endless was gathering in intensity and spilled forth when it finally couldn't contain itself any longer. And it was the consciousness of God crystallizing and wanting something to share with. But there wasn't other. It was just formless, unadulterated potential and light and like bursting at the seamsness. I'm so full of myself. I'm so full of energy. I can't sit here any longer. I need to share. I need to give. I want something to interact with, right? So this primordial point burst through the white light of the universe. And so that light was like, I need something to receive this light. And so light created vessel to receive. So everything in its origin, everything that we see underneath that's not the light is vessel. Vessel is made to receive the light. The light gives. The light is constant, emanating flow of giving. And the vessel is always receiving. So the world came into being through a mistake. The Creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed and did not get what he hoped for. So let's go back to the Garden of Eden. Before the fall of Adam and Eve, they were in this non-physical paradise here, last stop before physicalization. The flow of light goes down through the primordial point. It goes to the being manifested as pure light and energy and life force, which is the representation of the rawest form of the supernal masculine. And then that is just unadulterated dynamism, right? Think about like releasing, breaking open an atom and releasing all of that nuclear energy, right? Think about that, but times like a million, billion, zillion, you can't even imagine. So that has like no form, no direction, no capability to take shape or create anything, right? It needs the feminine, it needs restriction, it needs walls, boundaries to make shape, right? So the feminine became the container that caught the light. Now think about a womb catching the sperm. It is a lot like that. Everything is very sexual in creation. So the divine feminine became the vessel for receiving. Now, everything that's not the light is the vessel. So when Jesus talks about the bride and the bridegroom, the bride will receive her bridegroom. Whether or not whatever your gender is, it doesn't matter, because we as human souls, we are all considered the feminine because we are here to receive the Christ, God, the light of God, right? And so every spherot becomes a feminine, even if it's in the masculine column, because it receives and then it gives. And so it's sort of like gender neutral, or it depends on the context, whether or not you're giving or receiving, the way that the light and the energy flows through the system of filtration to eventually condense and crystallize into physicalization. So when we receive the light and creation is happening, the light travels down the tree. But as we go back up to try to meet the light, we ascend and we are flowing back to the source. So we ascend up, whereas the light condescends down to us. Flows down into creation. And then while we are incarnate, it's like our soul is trying to ascend back up the tree as we rise in consciousness. Okay, so the world came into being through a mistake. The Creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed and did not get what he wanted. So when we were here, Adam and Eve were here in this paradise, in this bosom here, in the Sfirat of Yesod, It was like a dream. This is also the astral realm. This is where dreams happen. This is where the dimension where dreams occur, where souls come and go through this world. This is a portal of life and death. This is through the portal through which we receive all abundance, all physical things, all spiritual things, all blessings, everything that meets with creation and with physicalized material world comes through here. This is the final gate. This is the final portal. This is also associated with the human genitals and like the womb of the feminine, right? The feminine gives birth. It's a portal of life and death. So this is also associated with the moon. So in this dimension, we were in this like imaginary realm, like in a dream state, in this dream world where everything was beautiful and perfect. And Adam and Eve were in total union with God, and nothing was separate. They weren't separate from them. Nothing came in between. They were united in that sacred marriage, that holy union. And they were in a non-physical form, and there was no pain or suffering, no unhappiness, no death, no expiration date. Everything was immortal. But when Adam and Eve ate the fruit and they felt shame, they fell from perfection. And that's when the ego drew the veil and began, when we knew the difference between good and evil, that was the introduction of the ego, the logical mind, the animal mind. And so that introduced fear, worry, doubt, pain, argument, separation, duality. And so we separated from God. We fell through the shame. We couldn't hold the vibration in the non-physical anymore. And that's when we put on clothes or were given flesh. God made, I think it said something like really like straight, like on the nose. It was like God made clothing out of skin, or God made clothing out of skin for them, and they clothed them in skins. Clothed them in skin. So we came here into the physical world where we had to toil to make wheat, to make bread. So we have to work. We have pain in childbirth. We have a shelf life. Like we don't live forever. We're mortal now. And that was all because of that, the introduction of the ego and shame. And we couldn't hold that vibration. We couldn't hold that light any longer. And we became separate. And then we became forgetful of who we really were and the paradise that we used to live in and perfect fulfillment and harmony. And now the whole point and purpose of the soul on earth is to try to reunite with God in that perfect harmony. So the world came into being through a mistake. The Creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed and he did not get what he hoped for. The world is not incorruptible, and the Creator of the world is not incorruptible. Now I'm like, how is God corruptible, right? And God's not changing, not really, but it was, because here's the thing. God was in the endless he was even more abstract than his most abstract form when he split himself into masculine and feminine so that there would be a vessel in order to share with, right? So in that way, God became something that he wasn't to start with. Like his form evolved and shifted and became something else than what he started. Now, the world that was formed became something else than from which it started. It started as immortal. It started as in perfect harmony, but it became something else. And it became something that had an expiration date, and everything in this world rots and decays, right? And so it is corruptible because the thing starts off as something and it changes over time. And it becomes something that it didn't originally start out as. Whereas we let's see, where does it say this? For the world is not incorruptible, and the creator of the world is not incorruptible. Things are not incorruptible, but offspring are. So the things of the world are not incorruptible. They start as something and they become something else. A plant starts as a seed and it becomes a plant, right? An acorn starts as an acorn, but it becomes an oak tree. A butterfly starts as a caterpillar, but it melts down and then becomes a butterfly, right? We as human beings are children. We are birthed from Adam and Eve. Didn't even start. They're not even what they were originally created. Like, they were creations, but we are children of the creations. We were birthed, but they were not. They were created from the creators making these creations for the first time, but they weren't born. But we are children of the creations, and we are born. So we are born human beings, and that's what we are throughout this life. But Adam and Eve weren't, to start off, human beings. They were perfect souls in this non-physical realm. And then because of an act that changed them, they were corrupted from their original form and became something else. And so we were born children of those creations that had changed. But we are born with a soul as a human being, a soul and a spirit, and we don't change from that in our life. Like, we die and we lose our flesh suit and we take our soul and our spirit with us. But on earth, we are human beings and we stay that way because we are birthed as human beings. So the things are not incorruptible, but offspring are, or children are. Nothing can receive incorruptibility unless it is an offspring. So like a caterpillar gives birth to caterpillar, I guess, but then it becomes a butterfly. But we give birth to babies and they become adults, but they're still humans. A dog gives birth to a dog, a cat gives birth to a cat. It doesn't become like a different creature. So nothing can receive incorruptibility unless it is an offspring. And whatever cannot receive certainly cannot give. So again, the giving and the receiving. So the light, as it goes from each spherot, think of it as light pouring into vessel, and then that vessel overflows into the next one. And so each thing is receiving and giving, receiving and giving, receiving and giving. But before there was this reality, this vessel to receive, there was only abstract, and there was nothing to pour out and give to. So there had to be a splitting and a separation in order to create a vessel to share to be able to give to. So what cannot receive certainly cannot give. So if this spherot cannot receive, then it can't give to the next. If it's closed off, if the vessel is closed and can't receive, then it can't pour forth and overflow into the next, right? So if without the vessel, the abstract endless light couldn't receive, right? But how does the endless light receive now? When we transcend and we go back, and we are eventually so perfected that the light takes us back in, and we become part of the light, and we are reabsorbed into the light. So now that there is a vessel to share to, the light can also receive as well. And the light couldn't share unless it was able to receive us back. Does that make sense? So think about, I think it was Elijah or Enoch. I can't remember. In the earliest part of the, it's like in Genesis, it's very early in Genesis. There was this prophet who walked with God every day, and who was like the highest evolved level of a person. And I think it's Enoch, because there's theories that Enoch became the archangel Metatron, but like Enoch was so one with God that he didn't die. He just ascended and was completely reabsorbed back into the God, back into God. Now Keter here, this highest spirit, this highest dimension, the angel associated with it is Metatron. It's the highest angel. The Metatron sits at the right hand of God. He is the messenger and like the face of God, the representative of God doing action. So let's read this again. The world came into being through a mistake. The Creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed, and he did not get what he hoped for. For the world is not incorruptible, and the Creator of the world is not incorruptible. Things are not incorruptible, but offspring are. Nothing can receive incorruptibility unless it is an offspring. And whatever cannot receive certainly cannot give. Now, we are here to transcend our carnal mind and surrender to our superconsciousness, our highest mind, the mind that is in alignment and has affinity with God himself and with Christ. And so we're to overcome our lower nature and rise up into our divine nature. And as human beings with a soul and a spirit and with free will, we are both fully human with our animalistic carnal consciousness and our divine consciousness. And both of those things make us who we are, right? So we are inherently both of those, and that's perfect just the way it is, but we can't eliminate that carnal animal mind completely, but we can correct it and transcend it and awaken the light within even that part of the self to, have the fact that if we weren't challenged by that side of ourself, then it wouldn't be such an achievement to transcend that part of ourself and claim that sovereignty, right? It's like when the hero goes to the gauntlet, or like when King Arthur had to pull Excalibur out of the stone in order to receive his kingship. Same with us. Our overcoming that carnal, animalistic, lower reactive nature that's based on instinct and take, and I want to survive, and I want to, I want. We transcend that and receive our divinity and our super consciousness by the strength that we've had to exert to overcome what is our easier nature, which is that animal nature. That's the part of ourselves that comes the most easy. It's our most natural state, but we have to go against our nature in order to rise above. And when we do that, it's like we are crowned in cosmic sovereignty, because we have overcome being driven and controlled by our emotions and our lust, and what makes us reactive and irrational and unreasonable, and leaves us open to be fallible and corrupt. We have to transcend that in order to leave that state, and surrender our ego to the care of the higher self, to reveal that higher spirit that's within us and live in that state and awaken the Christ consciousness within us, and then reveal all the light of God through a perfected vessel, which is our perfected soul. And I think that's enough depth to go into today. I am going to read this passage through one more time, and then we will be out. So creation through a mistake. The world came into being through a mistake. The creator wanted to make it incorruptible and immortal, but he failed and did not get what he hoped for. For the world is not incorruptible, and the creator of the world is not incorruptible. Things are not incorruptible, but offspring are. Nothing can receive incorruptibility unless it is offspring. And whatever cannot receive certainly cannot give. There was a thought, I hadn't finished my thought yet. So we have to overcome our being controlled by our emotions. And we have to learn how to master our mind so that we're not controlled by our out of control thoughts, right? But when we can do that, when we can hit that level of self-mastery, of rising above that nature to want to be controlled by our emotions and controlled by our out of control egoic thoughts, only then can we transcend into that state of super consciousness, into that divine mind, that Christ consciousness. And then truly claim cosmic sovereignty, because we are finally practicing self-control, which is, to me, the most important fruit of the Spirit, because without self-control, you can't really exist and be within the others as well. All right, y'all, that is all for tonight. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you did, and if you didn't, then keep it to yourself. We'll be back tomorrow for our weekly energy oracle forecast. And just a little housekeeping here while you're liking this video and subscribing to the channel. I have a 2025 prediction series. You can find it in my Stan store. The link is in the description box below. Ooh, I'm getting a Charlie horse. If you have tried to download or buy that in the Stan store and had payment glitches, it's because I did not have a payment credit card processor hooked to the store, because I needed some seller history in order for it to let me integrate that. So you could only pay through PayPal before. And I think people were getting really confused, and maybe nobody even tried to use PayPal except for the 2 people that got through. I've had literally over 100 people come to the page in my analytics, and I'm like, is this for real? 100 people were like, no, $10 is just too much. But I think they got tripped up with the payment processor. So that's fixed now. It's finally able to integrate Stripe. So you can use your credit card. If you find that it's still glitching, reload the page or switch over to Chrome browser, because Safari can be glitchy with some of those websites. Let's see what else. Oh, the 2025 prediction series has a yearly overview with a Celtic cross reading and channeled messages from me. Then there are journal questions that will help you set your consciousness for the year and keep in alignment with that throughout the year. There are quarterly readings that give us an indication of how we will best use and how to best navigate through the opportunities and challenges that come with each season. And so those also have corresponding journal questions. The seasonal readings are all in one long video, and all the journal questions are in the description box beneath each video. And then there are individual videos for each monthly reading. And those also have journal questions to help you workshop through the things coming up in your life and how to navigate through the weeks of the months. Even in the months that have already passed, I've gone back and listened to them, and it's incredibly helpful. There's always evergreen wisdom and deep Kabbalistic secrets and things in all of my videos. There's always spiritual teachings. It's not just predictive driven, although it's right on the money. It's incredible. When I went back and listened to it, the context of everything that we went through in January and February, I'm like, oh my God, it's mind blowing. But it even helps to go back and listen to those even for the months that have passed, and gives you so much context. It's like when you've read something and you've studied it and you take the test, and it's like you feel like you crammed and you're like, I don't remember any of it. But then when you go back and read the material again later, it's like it sticks and it makes so much more sense. It's sort of like that. It gives you so much deeper context, and you can look in hindsight and be like, oh my gosh. And you can take away so much more after the fact, in its own way. And then there's still all the rest of the year to come. So it'll be an invaluable tool to have to reference through the year, to gain context and perspective and try to stay in alignment the best we can through these unprecedented times. And it will prepare us and let us know how to fortify ourselves for both challenges and opportunities to come. So I am really proud of it. I think it's really amazing. And I try to price it really, really approachably. So it's $10. It's not a subscription. I think that was confusing to some. It's just a one-time purchase. And so then you will be sent an email link or a link in your email to a playlist, a private playlist. All right, y'all, I am starving and tired, so I will catch y'all tomorrow for our weekly energy oracle forecast. Ciao.